I'm Tamara Thomas, editor-in-chief of UrbanHealthToday.com, part of the DocWire family of medical news sites, and I want to thank you for tuning in to Urban Health Weekly. Our goal each week is to keep you informed of the latest in health and medical news right from today's headlines. It's time to empower yourself with open conversations about your medical care with news that matters to you. So are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, I'm Tamara Thomas, and welcome to Urban Health Weekly, where we talk about medical news and health topics that matter to you. I'm here with Jackie and Lou. How are you guys?
Hey, good. How are you guys doing?
Good. Excellent on this side.
Nice.
Beautiful day.
That's good.
Lots of topics.
I know we have a lot to cover. So today we were gonna talk about plant-based diet gone wrong, but I want to change course for a second because something came across my computer recently that I feel like is a little more pressing that I wanted to talk about. But first, I wanted to ask you guys if anyone has been watching the HBO series House of Dragons.
No. Have you guys been watching?
Oh my God. I'm going to take you guys nerd points away. Like you're killing me here. You're not watching House of Dragons?
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Oh my God. Well, there goes that bit.
Oh.
So the
Well,
last episode,
I plan on starting. I was busy watching Breaking Bad. I finished that. I was going to do Better Call Saul. All right.
Breaking
so now I gotta
Bad. Were you living under a rock? Breaking Bad is
well,
like
because I watched it with my kid, even though it's sort of inappropriate, but it's Shakespearean and quite, that's what I'm saying.
It's really good
And so
drama.
now we're going to start Better Call Saul. So we can
It's
watch
actually,
it together.
believe it or not, better than Breaking Bad.
That's what I'm hearing. So we're excited about that. He
Yeah.
already
The
knows
only
what he wants to be for Halloween, that kid from Breaking Bad. I said, oh
He
boy.
wants to be Saul Goodman.
No.
Guessing?
Keep guessing. The guy with the bell. Ding, 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 ding.
Oh
Oh my
my
God.
He
wants
is
to
that a
be
great-
He wants to be
Medical-
Salamanca.
Yeah.
Yes.
He
He wants to be Salamanca.
His whole front story or back story, whatever, is
It's really good. Yeah, it's
Season 3, you get him like his whole story, all the nuttiness, everything.
The only thing that I can't get behind in Better Call Saul, honestly, is it's supposed to be a prequel show.
Yes.
But everybody is so old. Like, come on, you
couldn't suspend that disbelief. That's
no. I
essential for theater.
had a lot of difficulty suspending my disbelief. That it just didn't come to give. But it really is a great show. It really is a great show.
Shakespearean also, right? And more character driven versus plot driven. I heard. Okay.
And yeah. So anyway, I'm still going to talk about
House of Dragons. I want to hear this.
This is a prequel to Game of Thrones. I know you, Lou. I know you didn't watch Game of Thrones at all. I still.
I watched some of it. I watched.
Did you watch Game of Thrones, Jackie?
I did watch some of it, and we gathered for the big finale. So that's another thing I'm going to start from the beginning. But did you experience that whole thing where the internet crashed or whatever, the streaming crashed while you were trying to watch House of Dragons?
I did not.
Oh, okay, good. Recently? Yeah, apparently on its big opening night, that was a thing. Yeah, and people were like,
with Game of Thrones, I used to block out 9:00 on Sunday night.
Wow, that's old school TV.
Don't call me, don't text me. I'm watching Game of Thrones. Period. Now with the House of Dragons, I still watch it, but I don't. It's not like I have to get to it on Sunday night with everyone else.
Remember, they used to call that must-see TV.
Must-see TV, yeah. And it is must-see, but it's streaming. So, unfortunately, I have to,
You have life?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had a life then, too, Game of Thrones. But with House of Dragons, things that I have to do are a little more pressing.
Right.
So I can't simply just block out that hour like I used to be able to.
Right.
So I watch it, but I watch it when I can watch it. But I try to watch it before all the spoilers. And by the way, this is going to be a spoiler. So if you haven't seen it yet, too bad for you. Spoiler alert. So the last one I saw, I think which was number 3 or it was number 3. And it time jumped forward.
Okay.
So in the first one, the king, Viserys, lost his wife to try in their quest, in his quest to try to have an heir, because heirs are very important. You got to have a son to be king.
Right.
And the second one, he decided to make his daughter. Well, actually, no, that was the first one. All right, I'm not sure of which episode, but what happened is Viserys became the king. He had to have an heir. Unfortunately, during childbirth, the baby became breached, so he lost mother and the boy.
Ooh.
So he named his only daughter his heir,
okay.
which rankled all the men because they don't want a woman.
They don't want that precedent.
Right. They want to keep the tradition of male heirs, so on and so forth. So, there's a lot of palace intrigue. They're trying to get him to marry and so forth. He finally does take a bride. It happens to be his daughter Rhaenyra's BFF, who her father was the hand of the king, who he'd been pushing her towards, like, go see him and make sure you wear your mother's dress and all this other, like pulling the strings behind the scene.
Right.
So now fast forward, time jump. She's the queen. They had a little boy, and Rhaenyra is worried that he's going to basically marry her off. She doesn't want to get married because she doesn't want to be pushed aside, for a little boy. And he assures her, I'm not going to push you aside. So in any event, that's not the cool part of the show. The cool part of the show was his brother, Daemon, who was supposed to be his heir, but because of some rumor, something happened at a bawdy house, although they didn't call it bawdy houses back then. He said something out of turn, and just drunk talk, but it got back to the king. The king got angry and sent him to one of their estates and was like, Rhaenyra is going to be my heir. And so now he was the head of the army, so now he's created his own little fiefdom, in his part of the world, and so on and so forth. Anyway, they get into some war because some guy called the Crab King is like basically killing all these sailors. And so they decide to go. So what happens now is Daemon, who's a madman, in a good way though, he's a madman, decides to go. They've got the dragons and all of that. They decide to go. And the consensus is, look, you got us into this war. You're gonna have to be a decoy to flush them out of these caves, because the dragons, the fire can only go so far, and they're just hunkered down hiding in the caves. So he sacrifices himself up, or at least that's what I thought he was doing, because he got a letter from his brother saying, I'm going to send you some aid. So when I first saw it, I thought, oh my God, he'd rather die than get aid from his brother.
Wow.
It was a complete decoy. So like as soon as they got close enough, he starts offing them. And then it's like a big fight. And then the next thing you know, they all start coming out, because how sometimes when you're so close to something, you can almost just taste it.
Yes.
So the Crab King starts sending everyone out of the caves to go after him, because he's just cutting them down. Ooh. So it's like this whole planned attack. So while they're busy trying to go after him, the army now shows up and decimates them. And then he goes in after the Crab King, drags out his body. It was completely very satisfying. It was almost like the Battle of the Bastards. Maybe not as good as the Battle of the Bastards, but it was like up there with the Battle of the Bastards. The Battle of the Bastards in Game of Thrones.
Yes, I did. So you're really enjoying
it was
this.
Really satisfying. But part of the satisfaction is I had no idea what he was doing. He saw the letter. He got angry. He and they say don't shoot the messenger. He starts shooting the messenger.
He shot the messenger.
The messenger.
I just feel sorry for the messenger.
With his sword, and he's handing them his sword. And I was like, oh my God, he'd rather die than take aid from his brother. But that wasn't it at all. It was like, I have to win now. I have to show him that I can do it without him. I don't want him to send his reinforcements and feel like he has to bail me out. This has to be it. So that was really exciting. Sorry for the spoiler, people. Really be watching. So on to the news. Are you aware of the Centaurus variant? It's an Omicron subvariant called BA 2.75.
Oh, 2.75.
Yeah.
Oh, where is that coming out of? Do we know? Where are the outbursts? Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
A few
That's the
scientists,
world's biggest democracy. So, and it's so populated. Isn't it
yeah,
the most populated continent?
I believe so, yes.
Wow.
So listen to this. A few scientists are sounding the alarm, whereas others say it's too early to tell whether the variant will spread widely. In India, it doesn't yet seem to be driving up hospitalization or death rates. But I want to point out again that they are not Western people. The diets are different.
Oh,
Okay. This is the same thing I said about Omicron when it was coming out of South Africa.
yeah.
Maybe it's not killing people there, but that doesn't mean we're losing 30 people a day at least here in New York.
Still.
Right. So let's not, and that's the BA5. So let's not assume that because it's not killing people in India that it's not going to kill us with our standard American Western diets here. Okay. BA 2.75 has been detected in more than 20 countries worldwide, and researchers are waiting to learn whether it will substantially elevate case numbers after a wave of infections with BA5. A slew of studies suggest that the two variants have roughly similar capacities to dodge immunity conferred by infection and vaccination. This suggests that Centaurus might not push cases much higher outside India, at least not while population immunity is high and before the variant picks up many extra mutations. Surveillance of SARS-CoV-2 variants is falling by the wayside in many countries, but India seems to be at the epicenter of the spread of BA 2.75. This mutation-laden lineage evolved from the BA2 subvariant of Omicron, which spread widely in early 2022. So far, BA 2.75 has been detected at relatively low rates outside India in countries including Japan, the United States, the United Kingdom, which are in the middle of or just past the peaks of surges caused mainly by BA5. As of July, it's been detected in European countries including the UK and Germany. I realize that we in the West have moved on.
We have fatigue.
Yeah, like I just saw the subway, the New York City Transit is going to be rolling out a "you do you" thing in terms of like you don't have to wear a mask or you can
Wow.
I'm not
Okay.
a fan of it, but it's election season right now, and I guess they're catering for the masses. But we should at least be aware that there's another variant that's out there.
Well, when it comes to big parts of Africa and countries like India, we have to look at the economic conditions of these countries and compare them to our norms. First of all, both these countries are much, much younger in average age
Yes.
than people in the United States by about 10 to 15 years. So guess what? On the average, while we have a very high amount of elderly people, those countries are a little bit younger and newer than us on the average. So you have to look at that. Number two, weight is a lot less in those countries. People are a lot less sedentary.
Yes.
There's not as much public transportation, so you got to walk to where you're going. There's the percentage of poor people is much larger, but it's not subsidized poor like we have here in the United States, where the government gives you a subsidy and you can go to the supermarket and, in many cases buy food that's not good for you. Over there, your poor is very poor, and they're eating, fruits and
They're
things.
probably eating like from the land, right? It's probably less processed.
There's a lot of it from the land and a lot from that. So what happens is, I'm not saying it's healthier. There's pros and cons to that, but it is a lot less fat free. So
probably more sugar free.
Yeah, well, think of it this way: your percentages of fruits is a lot higher than it is here. Here, you're starting to eat processed junk.
Right.
That really is not that good for you. The stuff that you put in your mouth is already processed. So there's a complete difference in weight. There's a complete difference in what diseases flow there. The other thing that we have to look at is when it comes to Asia and Africa, it's also a little disturbing that all of these variants seem to emanate over there. And we've got to say, okay,
Are
why?
you sure that's what's happening? Are you sure, or is it that they're actually reporting it?
Well, you know, it's when we look at COVID and we've done all that research, it started in China. And a lot of these variants, they do take them down to patient zero and to where they're reported and where they first become prevalent. And evidence points that they are emerging there. So, since there's nothing to the contrary, evidence also points that when we say that it's not here, that's not true. It's just that there isn't enough people to pick it up. But
Right.
the prevalence of the disease is over there before it is over here. And that is what we're seeing. So we have to start asking ourselves, why is it that this disease is mutating so fast, faster even than the flu, and where we're getting 3 to 4 strains a year, where with the flu we usually only got 1 strain a year.
I wonder if it's well, it's an elegant virus, but also I wonder if it has to do with any recombination, where 2 viruses, get together and just make a whole new strain.
Beats me. I don't know, or reinfection, or what
Because the mutations of this are really astounding.
Yeah, is it just mute more quickly than any other viruses around?
Well, as he was just pointing out, yeah, it moves faster than the flu, and we haven't been able to really tackle the flu. I mean, we've been able to manage it, but we'll never get rid of it.
Yeah. And
Right.
and how many people are asymptomatic and carry this stupid thing?
Right.
And like, for example, I've allegedly had it 2 or 3 times, but I never felt anything. That's why I say allegedly.
Wow. Yeah.
And God bless, knock on wood. But have I had it 5 times and not known? Because
Yes.
unless somebody tells me to look and check and all that, I
Right.
just carry on about my day.
Back to our theory, it's good to be Lou. Like, he's so
I know,
best.
right?
He's like, I'm
Start
just
selling
walking around, no problem.
my genome but anyway, those are questions we got to ask ourselves. Are we here in the West, because we're so vaccinated, also helping to the reproduction of this disease by having it and not even know we have it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like almost unheard of. I mean, I follow Major League Baseball. Last year, everybody was out a week because of COVID. I haven't heard anybody be out a day because of COVID anymore. Are people just having it and keeping on with their lives?
Well, speaking of not getting sick from COVID, noses might be kids' secret weapon against COVID.
Ah.
The linings of kids' noses are better able than those of adults to guard against SARS-CoV-2 infection, Australian researchers report. Children have a lower COVID-19 infection rate and a milder symptoms than adults, but the reasons for this have been unknown, said study co-author Kirsty Short of the University of Queensland. We've shown the lining of children's noses has a more pro-inflammatory response to the ancestral SARS-CoV than adult noses. She said researchers found major differences by age when comparing participants' response to COVID variants. They recently published their findings in the journal PLOS Biology.
Is that because kids have extra snotty noses if they're pro-inflammatory?
Well, maybe they have
more mucus,
snotty noses because of the pro-inflammatory factors. For the study, they exposed samples of nasal lining cells from 23 healthy children and 15 healthy adults to SARS-CoV-2. The virus replicated less effectively in the children's cells, and the antiviral response was greater. Wow. Short added that the expression of virus-fighting genes may change due to metabolic differences between children and adults. Interestingly, the study found that the Delta variant of COVID was significantly less likely to replicate in kids' nasal cells than in adults. This pattern, however, was noticeably less pronounced with the more contagious Omicron variant that is now predominant around the world. Taken together, it shows children's nasal linings support lower infection and replication of ancestral SARS-CoV-2, but this may be changing as the virus evolves.
Ah.
Said more research in a larger population is needed to validate these findings and to determine the role of other factors such as antibodies in protecting children from SARS-CoV-2 infection. Well, that may explain why my little one snuggled up against me that entire week when I was sick,
And it was no problem.
Mm-hmm. By the way, thinking about what Lou said, I have an interesting theory about something. So why most people of color, I think, are more susceptible to the virus? I think it's because we tend to have wider noses. So like if you think about it, European noses has evolved to slow down the amount of cold air that gets in. So wouldn't the same be said for viral particles, that you just get less viral particles because you have thinner noses?
I don't know.
But the one thing is that the young nose versus the old nose, a lot of the whatever it is, the sensors, the little hairs that trigger our sense of smell are there. As you know, young people have
they have more cilia, or like just hair. The nostril
little
hairs.
hairs in the cilia and all that there's a lot more of them in younger people. I'm wondering if that had, just like taste buds. So the older you get, the less acute your sense of smell gets, and that's
probably less ACE2 receptors in your nasal passage also.
Yeah, so the nose itself is a lot more, I guess, effective for a younger person. I'm wondering what part of it is the part that's protecting them from disease. It's just a thought. There's not enough evidence to go one way or the other, but I'm just wondering, what is the science here?
Yeah. But are there more children of color who are getting the disease than other children?
That I don't know. I know that population to population, that more people of color contract the disease and get sick from it than white children and adults.
Yeah, but a lot of that, based on a lot of, and we do have a few articles on that in terms of life expectancy on the site that kind of tie into this with the American Indian population. But what's been happening in those populations is that
comorbidities.
Yeah, the comorbidities are much higher.
But then, if that's the case, then children with asthma, you would think, would be more susceptible to COVID, and they're not, right?
Aren't they more susceptible to COVID?
But
aren't they more susceptible?
But then that's not
to the
happening.
Well, susceptibility and
wait. Maybe it's complications. Maybe I'm confusing complications versus susceptibility for kids.
Susceptibility meaning that
they're more likely to get it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You'd be more predisposed to get it. Doctors thought that asthmatics would be, in a much more compromised position, but that has not bore out throughout the pandemic.
Yeah. And then we have to start asking ourselves this question. If you've been living on Earth for the last 3 years, maybe not in the space station, but if you've been living on Earth for the last 3 years, what is the probability of you having had COVID at least once, whether you know it or not?
I'm convinced that there are people who've had some COVID and didn't know they had COVID.
I have no idea.
Is not everybody tests?
There's gotta be.
No, I don't think everyone tests.
Nah.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Why am I going to test if I feel fine?
That's what I'm saying. I'm sure because people aren't like proactive about testing.
Right.
I'm sure people have had it. And
there's a lot more people that probably tested
and insist they never had it because they didn't know
because they didn't get sick from it. Exactly.
Right. So if we
probably didn't notice the symptoms, probably thought, oh, it's just a little sniffle, or
right. They attributed it to something else.
Exactly.
Right. So if we go, let's throw the number at 70% here. Okay, have had it at least once, whether they know it or not.
Right.
That means the planet is becoming a planet of COVID survivors. Then if you throw out the percentage of the people who've had it a second time, whether they know it or not. You start saying, okay, vaccines or no vaccine, then you throw in vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Are we toughening up to this? So are we becoming like leather?
Are we becoming where it's becoming like a flu? Is that what you're getting at?
I'm saying, is it becoming like the flu or even milder? I mean, I've had the flu where
I
I'm
don't know
knocked
about
out.
I don't know if we're there yet. I think, well, look, I think we're gonna get there. I don't know that we're there yet.
Yeah, I think the one main difference between this and the flu, because the flu is just as deadly or was deadlier. I mean, you know, if you get the flu, you've got that 2%, 1 to 2% chance of dying.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with COVID, first COVID. The first round of COVID was a little, believe it or not, a little milder than the flu.
Yes.
In terms of that. And that was
That's
the
true.
first round. These last couple of rounds are nothing compared to the flu. What I do believe is that, and I'm saying this without a paper of statistics in front of me, I believe that COVID is much more transmissible than the flu, meaning it's easier to get. So if you're in a party with 20 people and one person has COVID, I bet you 10 of them will end up COVID. If you're in a party with 20 people and one of them has the flu, maybe 3 of them get the flu. So I think that COVID is a bit more transmissible. In terms of deadly, I would say it's a little less deadly at this stage of the game, after a bunch of mutations and after people toughening up and
but couldn't there just be some new mutation that comes along that's just extra deadly, or more, just it might be more transmissible but not necessarily more
maybe
deadly.
The people that were genetically susceptible to it started dying out. I mean, you gotta think about it, because you know, everybody knows somebody who was, you know, and
everybody,
again, somebody who knew somebody's cousin or something. But everybody knows somebody who got the COVID and they were perfectly healthy, and then they were dead or almost died or something.
Yes,
especially
everybody knows somebody.
The early onset. And what we haven't discovered yet, maybe we'll never will because they didn't take genetic samples from these people, is was there a genetic predisposition to COVID? And because so many people have gotten it, have we bred out that genetic predisposition? Anyway,
hold on.
That's a really loaded.
I bred out, those people are dead, so they're done.
Oh gosh, that's a loaded.
The disease has only been around for a few years.
All right, so all the people that genetically.
What are you talking about breeding out?
Well, the people that
takes generations for something to happen like that.
The people that were genetically predisposed are dead, so they're not going to breed anymore.
Oh, for heaven's sake! So they don't leave children behind. You
well,
realize how many children were left behind
children may not be,
as a result of the pandemic?
Their children may not have that trait. You know, who knows?
I think you should be extremely careful, Lou.
That was one heck of a loaded. Oh my God.
I think you should be extremely careful. You're stepping into eugenics territory.
No, I'm not
here.
stepping into eugenics territory.
You
what I'm saying
are.
He put the whole
you're saying that the strongest survived, and that
I'm not saying that the strongest survived.
And the chat.
All right, you're saying the most adaptable.
All I'm saying is that to any and every disease, we don't understand this, but there's always a group of people that are immune to it. Why? I don't know. You know, there's always that one person that could be in a room with a bunch of people with COVID, and that person never catches it. We don't know why.
Are you talking about like a Typhoid Mary situation?
Yes, something like that. So there's that person. Now on the other side, there's that one person that's healthy as, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah, and there's no reason for them to have. They didn't even have complications.
Got COVID and died. They were at the prime of life. They were 30 years old. They got COVID. Yeah.
Passed
away. Excuse me. And what I'm saying is, and this is where, it's genetics to know. I mean, I've always said there's research to show and research to know.
Mm-hmm.
And research to show, I always get very skeptical about, because you start out with a premise and you try to prove your premise.
Right.
Research to know, you just do the research and whatever comes out, comes out.
Okay.
However, you got to do a hell of a lot more of it than research.
That's your synthesis versus deduction argument.
What I'm saying is that a lot of the people that were highly susceptible to the COVID, meaning the COVID
hospitalize them and kill them.
Yeah, you know, it's like me being allergic to almonds or something. You know, it's like whatever. Those people were allergic. Let's call it allergic to COVID. The people that got that COVID passed away. And they passed away right away in this thing. Everybody in the planet, let's assume everybody in the planet has had
right away.
Yeah, but they
Some
got,
time,
well,
yeah.
they lingered for a month because they were strong, but they died. So now what I'm saying is, now that that first wave has passed on
Okay.
and passed through us, has that somehow changed the
You mean have it?
population
You mean
ratios?
have the population? I thought you were saying it hasn't changed because basically they took the disease with them when they died.
Well, not only do they take the disease with them, like let's say,
Which
let's
is why
say-
it's mutated.
That's
because it
a
realizes
theory
that-
that's been taking place for years and years
which
about
is
all kinds
why,
of diseases.
which is part of the mutation when the
Yeah.
disease starts realizing if we're going to
Right.
survive, we can't kill our host.
right, and well, and my brain right now is working a little overtime, so I think
Yes,
we're gonna
we
have to
can hear
take
that.
we're gonna have to take a break right after this. But let's just look at the numbers.
Okay.
This disease, when it came out, was enormous. It killed, I would say, close to 10 million people on the
Okay.
planet.
Right.
Let's assume it's 10 million people.
You're not including people who died because they couldn't see their doctors for other things. You're talking
I'm
strictly
talking about
people.
you died.
flat out
Right. You
COVID.
got COVID, you died. You know,
Okay.
that little count we used to have on CNN that
Oh yeah.
year after the election. So anyway,
That still sticks in your carotid.
yeah, it does. I mean, you're gonna have it, keep it, you know. So anyway, you have all these people on the planet have died from it. What did they have in common? We don't. The answer is we don't know, because we're talking about 10 million people.
Okay.
Now we're talking about a planet that has 6 billion people in it. So obviously 10 million as a percentage of 6 billion is 0.5 or whatever. So not a big percentage of the planet died off because of this, but a significant amount died off. More than usually dies off of anything.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that, much like a peanut allergy, was there something called a COVID allergy that we don't know about? I'm talking about we don't know. Why?
That's
I'm just
intriguing.
I'm just
Yeah,
throwing
you
it
know,
out
you've
there.
had that's the
that I was
theory
trying to
why people have celiac disease, is that, you know, many years ago, people who had a particular mutation survived the bubonic plague in northwestern Europe, and those people happen to have this kind of thing that later on their descendants are more susceptible to developing celiac disease. So
Right.
that's like medical anthropology, sort of like.
Yeah, that's
an
where
interesting theory.
That's
Yeah,
where I was
it's a
going.
theory.
That's where
Okay.
I was going. That
Yeah.
you know, maybe this is something that we're not going to know now, and I hope there's enough DNA collected from those cases, especially the cases of people that were really super healthy, got this thing, it reacted with them in a bad way, and we say, oh, it was due to this.
But
or
what
due
do
to
you
that,
define as super healthy?
I don't know. I mean, people that
That's
otherwise.
actually the basis for sickle cell anemia and people who are carriers
Well,
who have the
sickle cell
advantage.
anemia, the sickle cell came from, it was protective against malaria, which was rampant in.
But that's why there's that advantage to having the sickle cell trait, but
Right.
not the presentation. Like it's an evolutionary advantage that just happens randomly, and some virus or disease comes along, and well, malaria comes along in that case, and it's endemic, and some people survive it because they have this mutation, and some people have
Right, because they have
Right.
this mutation, which is
Right.
the sickle cell, exactly. But now that we
Yeah.
have modern medicine that can fight malaria,
Right.
Right.
it's a deadly,
Right.
And even
painful.
within
It's
a
not an evolutionary advantage.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And even within the same household, why is it that 3 people that probably statistically have caught the same exact strain
Have different symptoms.
have
So you're saying somebody possibly has an evolutionary mutation that happens to be an advantageous mutation that protects them, or doesn't, or doesn't have that.
right?
Anyway, this is all very interesting food for thought, but we are going to have to take a break, and
Take a
we'll
break.
be right
Yeah.
back. And we're back, and let's talk about the potential long-term treatment for asthma that has been discovered. But before we jump into that, Lou, so do you feel like your brain has like slowed down?
A little bit,
You're
yeah.
not doing
but
the-
now we're going into a new
Not
topic.
doing the permutation.
He's gonna get
So
wound
I'm
up.
still adding up how many people there are on Earth and dividing, by the square root. But
Okay. Let's get into asthma discovery. Researchers from Aston University and Imperial College London have identified a potential method to address one of the fundamental causes of asthma. In the UK, about 1,200 people die from asthma every year, and just under 5.5 million get treatment for it. Asthma results in symptoms like wheezing and shortness of breath because the airways become thickened and constricted. Current treatments, such as steroids, give temporary relief from these symptoms by relaxing the airways or decreasing inflammation. However, no existing medications target the structural changes that asthma causes in the airway and lungs in order to provide a more long-lasting treatment. The study focused on a kind of stem cell known as pericyte, which is located primarily in the lining of blood vessels. When asthmatics have an allergic and inflammatory reaction, such as to household dust mites, the pericytes migrate to the airway walls. Once there, the pericytes mature into muscle cells and other cells that thicken and stiffen the airway. This movement of the pericytes is triggered by a protein known as CXCL12. The researchers used the molecule called LIT-927 to block the signal from this protein by introducing it into the mice's nasal passages. Asthmatic mice that were treated with LIT-927 had a reduction in symptoms within 1 week, and their symptoms virtually disappeared within 2 weeks. The researchers also found that the airway walls in mice treated with LIT-927 were much thinner than those in untreated mice, closer to those of healthy controls. Wow, that's good news.
That's interesting.
I'm looking forward to that coming to the market. But in the meantime, the Mayo Clinic lists a bunch of ways that you can help reduce asthma flares with diet changes. You know, I always have to throw in
good old diet change.
Well, it doesn't.
Yeah, but it really is amazing.
Listen, they're doing studies on the thing, and it's not something that's to market, to my knowledge, yet. So they suggest, the Mayo Clinic suggests eating more fresh fruits and veggies, the dark and colorful stuff, to fight inflammation. They say avoid sulfites found in wine, dried fruits, pickles, and fresh and frozen shrimp. And to make sure to supplement with vitamin D. And by the way, don't let your doctor tell you that 25 or 30 nanograms per milliliter is sufficient, because it's not. That is nowhere near enough to fight disease. You need to have somewhere
for vitamin D or vitamin C.
Vitamin D. You need to have at least 50 to 60 nanograms per milliliter. 50 to 60.
What does that translate into with like milligrams? Or are you talking about like you eat that, or if you're gonna take
when you do a blood test and they test your blood and you
what should my numbers be? Because I just
had numbers should not be 25 or 30. That's not enough.
I said that to the doctor. She's like, the doctor, right?
What did the doctor say?
It was a nurse practitioner. Actually, it was a nurse practitioner.
What did the
she's like, no, your vitamin D's fine. Because I had it tested just recently. And what was it again? I have to look. It was below 40.
Oh my gosh, that's not enough. It has to be 50 to 60, and should not exceed 100.
Because I was like, I'm always prone to low vitamin D, but you see, in the lab thing, you know how they flag when you go below, so they give that range, and that range is like,
but it's a very low range. It's not it's not enough to fight disease.
Also, in my family, we tend to run low on vitamin D. Like, just seems to be like whatever our particular thing is. So like I'm gonna go take some after this. Do we know if that's effective? Is effective? Do you recommend a particular way of taking your vitamin D?
Well, if you're not getting it, people always say, "Oh, go get it in the sun." If you live in the north,
I'm in the winter, or
if you live in the north or the northwest or the northeast, you're not going to take your coat off, and it's just not going to happen. Yes. You know, I mean, you have to be eating a diet that's, you know, very high in like fish and so forth, and a lot of people just don't eat it. Fish is expensive.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are concerned about mercury. So supplementing, like functional medicine doctors will tell you, like the one supplement they do get behind is vitamin D, because they know people just don't get enough of it in their regular diet. So that said, 25 is like the cutoff for
you're barely getting by.
It's nothing. It's like it's nothing really. It's like
it's not optimal.
It's right. Well, it's less than optimal. It's suboptimal. It's like insufficient. What's it's deficient basically.
Okay.
You know, I don't know where they came up with this value that 25 is sufficient. It's just not. So you need to have at least 50 to 60 is optimal.
Okay.
And you do not exceed 100 nanograms, because if you exceed 100 nanograms, then you're getting into toxicity, because it's and you don't want to have those problems. So I just wanted to get that out.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think of this new treatment?
Well, I'll kick it off. You know, a long time ago, before.
Oh, that's right. You've got asthma,
yeah,
Lou.
But before there was even medicine, you know, that.
And you eat shrimp. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. By the way, I will continue to eat shrimp. Before there was even
good heavens,
drugs that controlled it, you know, people, you know, realized they had asthma or whatever, and they felt, okay, I'm going to treat this by eating healthy. I'm going to treat this by keeping my house clean, and I'm going to go from 10 episodes a year to 2.
Or moving to Arizona.
Yeah, or somewhere.
That the old days, it'd be like, you have to move to a drier climate.
Yeah, exactly. Drier climate or somewhere. Yeah, you know. So that was, you know, 100 years ago. Take what we call now modern medicine, and we started saying, okay, if you're having an attack, if you take XYZ, this will prevent it. Or if you're always having attacks, just take XYZ all the time. Not prevent it, but make it better. You know, inhalers and all that. Or, you know, just take drug WXV or whatever. I'm just making up names here. And you'll get a lot less episodes. So that's the stage that we're at right now. And we're at this right now, not only in asthma, but in every disease.
Yeah.
That you just basically take a medicine and it doesn't really cure you, but it makes your symptoms go away. It makes the episode go away. You kind of that. But, you know, if you got GERD or you have a lot of things, you know, taking that antacid makes the symptom goes away, but it doesn't deal with the underlying cause. Deal with it.
Right.
Okay.
Then the next step that I would say we've mapped about half of diseases this way, is we figured out that, oh, it's because of this protein or you've got this gene and all of that. But that's a lot like that commercial that you see where they're robbing the bank, and then the thing tells you, oh, by the way, your bank is being robbed, and then nothing else happens.
Oh yeah, they just alert you to it.
I'm just monitoring.
Nothing changes.
Yeah, I'm just monitoring you.
I'm just alerting you. I don't actually do anything to stop it.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they tell you, hey, you got this gene. You better watch out. You know, you're gonna hit with a meteor. But there's nothing they can do about it. Okay. And that was up until now. However, we're now moving into the world of let's fix your gene. Now, that's kind of dangerous, but great. So I'll start out with the great stuff. And as a lover of sci-fi, you know, you always see these movies that in the future, they give you this injection and all of a sudden all your maladies go away and everybody's 20 years old. And hey, look, a lot of your stuff is genetic, and fixing these genetic problems is great. And they just fixed some genetic problems in mice, and that's fantastic. And I would be all for it in humans. But when you start looking at genetics and messing with that whole code, it's sort of like a computer program. You think you're fixing it, but now you've made your computer a lot worse. So what else are we unleashing when we do these things? And that's why everybody's going very slow. Everybody's going very cautious. It's very much like, you know, genetically altered food or vegetables or whatever that you eat. And we really don't know what the long-term effects of all of that is that we're putting into our bodies. Especially this is great. This is the forefront of medicine. this is where we're going to be in 25, 40, 50 years. I don't know. I probably won't be able to see it.
Some people.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is still going to be largely unavailable for low
Wow,
income people.
it'll be just like any other medicine. It'll be completely unavailable to those that don't have money, don't have proper insurance.
Right.
And hopefully, I'd like to say that in 20 or 40 years, society will be a little bit better about that, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
And then after that, in 100 years, I think it's going to be common course where you're, subjected to a genomic evaluation.
But also, I think from a financial perspective, I can't see pharma getting behind something like that, because to alter something genetically would be to render the disease obsolete. And what happens to all those cures?
That's an interesting perspective.
That whole machine goes belly up. Mm-hmm. So there is really no incentive for these technologies to go.
I beg to differ, because the entry price is very expensive, that they're saying.
Okay, and so then only the elite get it then, and everyone else has to scuffle.
Only I will get it,
Yeah, and everyone else has to scuffle
so that I can go home in my Range Rover or BMW.
There's a second time you drive a Range Rover into this conversation.
Or BMW. I threw in a second one because, God forbid, I only have one luxury. And all of you driving Chevrolets are just going to have to grin and bear it.
Us plebeians.
Exactly. Watch me be healthy while I am healthy. I don't think so. I like to think that
was a joke, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, I like to think that.
What are you really saying about this?
What I'm saying is that this is the future of medicine.
Yes, it is.
And what you're saying is that there's going to be some class differentiations as to people that can afford
just there always is.
You said, is there money in this? And I said, there's a lot of money in this.
There's a lot of money in it, but there's not money in it in so far as curing the nation. Like the whole thing with the way they sold the genetic modification, food was, we could feed the world. Well, the world is still hungry.
Yeah.
It's just a way to keep insects away so that you can keep it's like what they did with bread, where they made bread so crazy that even mold doesn't want to eat it, so it could stay on the shelf longer so that more people can buy it. But what they don't realize, or what they do realize and don't care, is that it's making people sick. So that's why I threw in my little bit about, here's what you can do for asthma to sort of, because this.
In the meantime, what can you do right now?
Right. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. You always say it so well, Jackie.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm 40 years from now. I've forgotten.
Who is future thinking? He is looking to the future.
He's thinking about his fresh whips as he drives through, laughs. Plebeian. Out of my way.
I've got my treatment. I'm
going to run over the hoi polloi.
What insurance do you have?
Anyway. All right, so let's get on. I'm glad that we brought this up, because the next thing that I want to talk about, I want to get into the this week's topic. So as I said, I was going to talk about, the plant-based diet myth, that it's like so healthy and all that. And if it's done right, obviously it is. But a lot of people are not doing it right. We'll talk about that another time. What I want to talk about today, I was, I get headlines, I get push notifications from all these different, medical journals and stuff like that. And a story came across last night that I was like, whoa. And I know that people are probably tired of talking about it, maybe not, but I'm going to talk about it anyway, because I think it's really important. And I want to talk about how monkeypox is taking the financial toll on low-income people. And this was a BuzzFeed article, actually. And it was talking about it was these two young men. And let me just read.
Okay.
With little to no laws guaranteeing workplace. See, I don't like that they're making this about workplace sick leave, but I want to read it and I want us to have a discussion. With
Okay.
little to no laws guaranteeing workplace sick leave in the US, the lengthy quarantine period can put people who catch monkeypox in a precarious financial position long after their lesions heal. Things started to look up for Angelo Perry this summer. After months of interviews, he finally landed the job he so badly wanted at a warehouse near his home in Atlanta. On July 12th, he began a role working full-time as a forklift operator. But just a few days later, he woke up with high fever and chills, his bed sheets drenched in sweat. His condition worsened from there, and soon he had rectal pain so severe he could barely go to the bathroom or even sit down. On July 19th, this is just 7 days later, he went to the hospital where he tested positive for monkeypox.
Wow.
When Perry informed his supervisor about his condition, nothing seemed to be amiss. But about a week later, in the hotel room where he was quarantined, he tried to log onto his employee portal and discovered he no longer had access to it. That's how he realized he'd been fired. More than 20,000 Americans have been diagnosed with monkeypox, the virus that's been declared a national public health emergency during this ongoing outbreak. The CDC has advised those who contract it to isolate for the duration of symptoms, which typically last 2 to 4 weeks. But with little to no laws guaranteeing workplace sick leave in the US, this lengthy quarantine period can put people who catch monkeypox in a precarious financial position long after their lesions heal. For some, it's meant turning to GoFundMe to survive. Zion Mackey, 23, had only just recovered from monkeypox when he began doing Instacart and Uber Eats deliveries. Though his symptoms had fully resolved, after which health officials say patients can safely stop quarantining, the restaurant where he worked as a server required written notice that he tested negative before returning. But the hospital that he'd initially tested at wouldn't test him again, and instead referred him to a county epidemiologist who Mackey couldn't get an appointment with until weeks later. Let me read that again. The hospital that he'd initially tested at wouldn't test him again, and instead referred him to a county epidemiologist, and he couldn't get an appointment until weeks later. So that means that he has to sit on the sideline.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. So let's get into it. Because this to me is the heart of what the problem is.
Yes.
The problem is not that you're employed. Look, these positions have to be filled. They need bodies in these positions. So right. I don't want to talk about the fact
that they're going to say, oh, it was stigmatized, or we don't have workplace leave. In this case,
yeah, but he'd only been at the job for less than a week. Okay?
Right.
So you know what's the expression? What is it? Last hired, first fired.
Right.
And that's unfortunate, but that's not what the big issue is.
Right.
The big issue is getting access to care. There is no reason why this young man should not have been able to go back, the other young man, the second young man, go back and get results showing that he's negative. This is the problem. Why do they have
why
to go
did the hospital refer him out like that?
Why didn't they just test him again? I don't understand why they didn't just test him again. And then the epidemiologist is backed up for weeks and weeks. This man needs to go back to work, for heaven's sake. Well, so now he can't go back to work for weeks because they're not going to let him back without a negative test. And rightfully so, because he's in food service.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. 95% of our healthcare costs are not drugs. 95% is administration. And that administration is piss poor. Because getting appointments, seeing specialists, people having the ability to know what's urgent, what's not urgent, is mind-boggling. I mean, the hoops, and Tamara, you were telling me a story about this earlier off air, that you've had a tough time getting an appointment for yourself.
Oh my God, that's right. Yeah.
Wow. And you have,
and it's I'm on vacation. First the doctor tells you like, oh, just call here and we're going to do all these wonderful things for you. Yeah. And then it becomes like, I'll let you tell the story.
I didn't want to make it the me show, but just in keeping with the thread of the frustration of dealing with medical care. Okay. So when we last spoke about do you remember going back going way back into the summer, where I found a doctor, and she said that she would remove the clip,
Right.
and she would just remove it. That
Right.
they're putting it in for liability reasons, but she's just going to remove it. That
Okay.
all I have to do is ask, and she'll go ahead and she'll have it removed.
Very good.
Okay, now, so that was in July.
Okay.
We're in September now. I had an appointment scheduled for the beginning of September. Well, so I got a call mid-August saying that the MRI machine is broken, so they can't do my MRI assisted biopsy.
Okay.
I said, well, that's 2 weeks. You mean to tell me you can't get your machine fixed within 2 weeks? No, we're canceling all appointments right now. We'll call you back when we either we have the machine fixed, or we're going to call you back with another appointment. Well, the young lady who does all the scheduling, the nurse, she went on vacation.
Okay.
So I've been calling and trying to get a new appointment, and I have not been able to get through to have somebody make me a new appointment. A week later, someone finally picked up the phone. I must have left this woman I can't even count how many messages I left. And it's just like these long messages, just getting longer and longer, because I'm like having conversations with no one.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's got to that point. So then finally someone picks up. She says, oh, we have a list here of people, and I see that you're on that list. Let me please call you back tomorrow. I've got to find out if the machine should be fixed by now, but I've got to confirm, and then we've got to get you all rescheduled. So so tomorrow came and went. I called back a couple of days later, didn't get anyone. Called back the next day.
Gosh.
I said, hey, you were supposed to call me XYZ day, and I didn't hear from you. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's just been so crazy, and it's been so busy, blah, blah, blah. I'm really sorry about that. Can you call me next week? So at this point, I'm silent, because I'm like,
it's practically September now.
It is September now.
Oh.
What do you mean call you back next week? Well, can you call me next week at this day, at this time? And I'm just sitting there like, I don't want to explode at her, because that's not going to be very helpful.
Okay.
But I'm like, why is she asking me to call her back? I'm on the phone now. And I said to her, I said, look, I don't mind calling you, but this is becoming really unproductive, because most of the time I call, I don't even get a person. And now that I got a person, you're telling me to call you back next week. How do I know if I even get a person next week? I can't keep doing this. Like, I have to work. Well, and then she came up with like a million reasons why she didn't have the information now. And can you call me next week? So I said, fine, I'll call. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to argue with her. I don't feel like going through this all over again. And this is how people end up with.
You just get so frustrated.
Well, it gets frustrating, but also this is what happens. This is how when someone starts off with stage 1, and I'm not saying I have cancer, but this is how somebody starts.
Yeah, and before you know it, you're in stage 2, 3.
And then next thing you know, you're in stage. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because of this kind of nonsense.
Unnecessary delay.
Yeah. And then the stress of trying to create the appointment.
Yes.
Doesn't help either. So you've got the stress, and then you've got the delay.
Right.
Now, I actually have time to make these calls. Just imagine somebody who has to work at a terminal, who has to work at who
can't work at a desk and can't have access to the phone.
It doesn't have access to the phone to just pick up the phone and call whenever they want to. This is how so many people get left behind by the medical system.
Yes.
Because you have people on the one end, the providers who are trying to do the right thing. And then you have the support people on the other hand. And it's not that they're well-meaning. It's not that they're bad people, but they don't understand that these kinds of delays are costing people. It's costing people. And it costs you more money to have to fight at stage 2 than it would at stage 1, or stage 0. Like, they don't understand the big picture of the decisions that they make. So now getting back to this monkeypox thing. What's happening is, because these people have, because these people, are only thinking about their little silos and their little, jobs, they're not thinking about the larger implications of.
They're not thinking about the patient.
No, They're not thinking, okay, I've got to get this patient a letter so that he can get back to work. It's a simple thing, really, right? Make an appointment because the person needs a letter to get back to work. They're getting paid for this regardless. I don't understand why we've dropped the ball on this disease so badly. And what's happening is like the people that, there's like all this talk about, people getting left behind and inequity and all this other stuff. But there is nothing done to fix the inequity, because at the end of the day, you're giving people a fifth of the dose of the vaccine. What the hell is that supposed to do to keep somebody who's exposed to a lot of people? Let's say you work at a gas station and you're handling money.
Right.
You're not making a lot of money, so you're not eating, an organic diet, that's rich in polyphenols. Berries are not filling. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
people are not necessarily eating
right.
that kind of food because it's not filling food. They're eating food that fills their bellies, and the food
Right.
that fills their bellies that's cheap enough to do is not the food that's going to really nourish them and keep their immune system strong and healthy. And then I had the financial stress, that creates the distress, the emotional and mental distress that weighs on the body. You've got all of these things creating a perfect storm of unhealthy, lower income people that are exposed firsthand to this disease, and they can't get the care that they need. If you are working, I read something that was like so terrible in this, that 40% of the vaccines for the virus are going to basically higher income people. Why? Because we can sit at our computers and we can refresh and get that appointment. And then if the appointment is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, no problem. I'll just put my computer on hold, and I'll just put my sneakers on. I'll just go and get my appointment, and then I get back to work. I can't do that if I work at Amazon, at an Amazon warehouse. I can't do that if I work as a cashier at a supermarket. I can't do that if I work in a fast food place. I can't do that if I work in a gas station. So they've made it, and I can't be on my phone. I can't sit there and refresh. I'll get fired for being on my phone.
That's right.
So they have created a system. Weren't you telling me, Lou, that in Florida you can literally just walk into a place and just get vaccinated?
Yep.
This is ridiculous. Wow. People should be able to have the expectation. This is not like coronavirus where we had to figure this disease out and then create something. This we already know of. We know that pox exists. We have the cures for these things. We have the vaccinations, rather, and we're just not making it accessible to people, and it is ruining people's lives. Just ruining their lives for no other reason than inefficiency. It's heartbreaking, that these young men now have to go. They don't have insurance because they can't afford insurance. They've been exposed to this dreadful disease, and now they've lost their jobs. Don't tell me that, it's about the fact that they lost their jobs. If I'm an employer, I don't want to be on the hook for somebody, paying insurance for someone who just started day 1 and day 3, they're out. Get out of here. Miss me with that noise. Okay. But at the end of the day, this person should be able to go to a local hospital or a local clinic and be able to get that care. And then there's the fact that because there's so much stigma attached to it, if you go and you say, look, I need this. Well, what do you need it for? Well, what does it matter? I need it. Do I have to tell you my sexual orientation?
Yeah. So how is that your business? I need it.
It's so, but that's how they set it up, that you have to be like, I can't go and say, I need the monkeypox vaccine. I have to give justification.
I have to jump through hoops.
I have to jump through hoops. I have to literally be a gay man or a man that sleeps with men. Do I really want to out myself because I need care? This is patently ridiculous. And this is the crux of the problem. And I wish people would stop trying to make it, somebody else's problem. At the end of the day, our systems are failing people, failing them. This is state problem. This is not private employers' problem. This is the state's problem. And the state needs to get off their ass and get their act together and stop coddling workers and really take care of people. And that's what I have to say about that. You guys
here. Wow. You've made quite a case. I have to agree with you. You feel like, yeah, I'm a believer.
Yeah, after that, there's nothing really.
So I was also reading this other article, and they were talking about the ways to avoid monkeypox. And so they talked about the ways that you can get it. And so one is direct skin to skin contact. So it would have to be prolonged skin to skin contact, like maybe hugging somebody, skin to skin.
So
not necessarily shaking,
like a handshake.
No.
Okay.
No, a handshake is not long enough. And plus you can wash your hands.
Right. Okay.
Afterwards. It's really more like, giving somebody like a big hug, and then, you rub the shoulders. Oh, how are you? And that kind of thing. It's not light brushes. So they're saying that you don't really have to be worried about, if you shake someone's hand or fist bump or something like that. You just wash your hands afterwards. If you're going to hug somebody, make sure you're fully covered and don't make it a long lingering hug. We were doing the elbow bump for a while with the COVID. And I think, we should go back to that. Go back to the surfaces, touching contaminated surfaces, objects, or fabrics. It's funny, Lou and I were going somewhere and he saw somebody with a mask and gloves on waiting at a bus stop, and he starts laughing at the guy. And I was like, no, this guy,
that would be me.
Right. He's absolutely right. Do you really want to be touching the pole on the bus? And then, you've got some friggin' monkeypox? I think not. So this guy who had his mask on,
pretty smart,
and his gloves on, was absolutely doing the right thing. Because you don't know who touched it before you, especially in public transportation. And airborne transmission. You want to make sure to wear your mask. I'm very disappointed that this city has gone to a "you do you" campaign where it's like you can wear a mask, you don't wear a mask. But
are
whatever.
You seeing people wearing masks at the grocery store?
Some people, most people are not. But nobody makes a big deal about whether we're thankfully we're not in an environment where people try to shame you for wearing a mask. Some people wear a mask, most people don't wear a mask. That's okay. I just don't want people trying to make me feel some sort of way for wearing a mask, because I'm going to stay wearing a mask. Right. I urge you to wear your mask, because monkeypox is not a joke. This will take you out. Anyway, go to Urban Health Weekly for the links to these articles.
That's a very good article, that particular one too, because it also has good drawings and figures. It really shows
you what. Exactly. Yes. It's really good. So anyway, it'll be on Urban Health Weekly. Check it out and fortify yourself, because remember, you only have one life and one body. So you've got to do your best to make it count, so your years are full of life and full of health. Remember, people, information equals transformation. So small steps each day and you'll see a difference. I am sure of it. That's all the time we have today. My lovely co-host. It's great to talk to you always. Mwah. Bye. I'm sending one to you too, Luke. Mwah. Yeah. Bye.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening to Urban Health Weekly today. I hope you'll join me and my friends next week so you can stay informed and inspired to take control of your health. See you next time.